We came across devastating flash flood in Nepal.
Don't you hear the ice cracking? It's not happened for the first time. It's another link in a chain. The glaciers kept on giving us life for thousands of years. And what we are seeing in Nepal today is that the glaciers can also give you a very painful death. Probably we have already crossed the point of no return. The North Indian plains start leaving lesser water. What happens to the huge mass of population living here? What would be India without the Himalayas? What Nepal and India and the world has just heard is one of those bangs. The glaciers will keep banging and they'll bang us really hard into us. Yes, please tell me. First of all, are you okay and safe if you are from Nepal?
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm safe.
Okay.
So actually, I'm going to talk about this flash flood. Yesterday, I think now, because we already passed 12, so I can say the day before yesterday, uh, we came across devastating flash flood in Nepal because of high altitude glacier collapse. So it was originated from the mountain and affected thousands of lives, infrastructure, and there were even piles of dead body in the bank of rivers. Still, hundreds of people are missing. So those are the losses because of this. But I'm not only worried about this loss. There is one fact that everyone is treating this as a natural disaster. Some say it's bad luck, some say it's unexpected crisis, but no one is ready to see it as a effect of climate change, and we are responsible for that. So my question is, how can we see this crisis, and how can we deal with this crisis, and how can we save Nepal so that we can save rest of the world?
You see, Nepal and the rest of the world do not stand separated. They are one. They are one when it comes to the effects of what is happening. And what you have just named is the very culprit. The tendency to not to see. The compulsive determination to not to acknowledge what has been already and repeatedly seen. No? We know very well what has just happened in Nepal, and it's not happened for the first time. It's another link in a chain. It's a part of a predictable pattern. 2001, 2023, 2024, now 2026. Sikkim, Chamoli, Nepal in 2024, Nepal again in 2024. We know it's happening. We also know it's probably again going to happen the next year, somewhere in the Himalayas. And it could strike Nepal, it could strike Uttarakhand, it could strike Himachal, it could even strike Bhutan or Kashmir or the northeastern states of India. Any place. So Nepal and the world are just one, because you see, Prakriti simply does not acknowledge political boundaries. I was deeply dismayed. I've been looking for the word climate crisis in media reports, and it's very infrequently that I am finding them in relation to what has just happened in Nepal, and the crisis is actually still unfolding because we are counting the dead. The numbers have already exceeded 400, and it's becoming more and more horrible to look at. So we are talking of all kinds of things, as you said. oh, bad luck, oh, situational thing, oh, this happened, that happened, oh, so many nationalities got hurt. Oh, there were pilgrims. Oh, there was this commercial establishment also on the China-Nepal border that got hit. So we are looking at it from all places, all angles, talking of all objects, naming everything, and stubbornly avoiding that one word that needs to be not just uttered, but shouted out. Climate, climate, climate. What kind of conspiracy is this? Who are we trying to deceive? This is a pattern. This is happening, and this will happen again. And I'm afraid it will happen again quite soon.
Yeah, actually, same incident had happened in same river 14 months ago.
14 months ago,
But
yes.
still, yeah, but still we couldn't deal with this in early time because we couldn't get proper information, lack of communication.
I'm sorry, information might not be the thing that can save us for long and in most cases. Because you must understand the mechanism of what is happening. When glacier starts thinning out because of temperature rise, one can never accurately predict when it is going to lose a part of itself and in which direction, and if that part is lost in an uneven terrain, where that part is going to eventually fall and land up. There are 60,000 glaciers in the Himalayas. 60,000 glaciers. Please imagine. How can information save us? And each single one of those glaciers is thinning out at a remarkable rate and an accelerating rate. And a thin glacier is obviously going to break, get fragmented. And those massive pieces of ice are going to fall somewhere, and we cannot predict where. So what happened here? You see, look at how the media portrayed it. They said Badal phata hai. They said baad aayi hai. They said it's a case of flooding. They want us to believe that it's a case of normal floods as we experience usually in the subcontinental monsoon. And since we are still in the middle of the monsoonal season, the common man is believing that this is another case of monsoonal floods. This is not flooding because there were no rains happening at that place that day. 26th of August, when the crisis unfolded, there were no rains there. What do you mean by flooding? Yes, flooding did happen, but it was a very unusual kind of flooding. You see, there is this glacier and it loses a big chunk, and that chunk falls into a tributary of the Trishuli river. Right? The same river where we had the same river ecosystem, where we had a problem, floods, just 14 months back, as you pointed out. Now that big mass of ice, a solid thing, sits there blocking the way of the river. So obviously water will accumulate because the flow of water has been blocked. So water will accumulate. And when water accumulates, it cannot stay accumulated for long. The pressure of the accumulated water will keep increasing as more water gathers. And then at some point, some largely unpredictable point, the water will burst out in the form of a flood. And the flood was experienced by the Trishuli river. It's like, it's like hundreds of cubic kilometer of water, along with lots of boulders, huge rocks, rushing at highway speeds. That kind of momentum. What can stand in front of it? But it is not being disclosed fully to the public. The public is feeling it is a case of seasonal floods. It is not a case of seasonal floods. This is a glimpse of a pattern that is only going to intensify and recur. And recur so much it will become a part of our daily lives. The Himalayan Hindu Kush region, it has so much ice and so many glaciers. It is called the third pole of the world. Third pole. Just as the North Pole and the South Pole have so much ice, after them, it is this region that has that kind of comparable amount of ice. If I'm not mistaken, 6,000 cubic kilometer of ice. Think of the volume and the weight of ice. And this ice has been melting at a very, very fast rate. And not only is this melting, even the rate of melting is accelerating. So much for our climate activism and efforts to reduce carbon emissions. The winter lines, the ice lines, they are receding upwards every year. You know of the word snow line, right? The altitude at which, beyond which, you start finding permanent snow. It is continuously receding. The mountains are losing the glaciers. And the mountains are also losing permafrost. That reminds me of, because we are now naming both the glaciers and the permafrost, that reminds me of cryosphere. What does the word cryosphere mean? It refers to the entire mass of ice on the earth. So when it comes to the Himalayan region, it refers to three things: the accumulated ice in the glaciers, the snowfalls, and the permafrost. What is permafrost? It is permanently frozen ground. Permanently frozen ground. Now this permanently frozen ground acts like cement on the steep walls of the hills. The Himalayas are young fold mountains. They are still quite loose. But the permanent frost, this permafrost, helps keep the slopes cemented. So things don't start falling off from those slopes. But because of temperature rise, because of climate change related temperature rise, because of anthropogenic temperature rise, the permafrost is melting, the glaciers are receding, and the snowfall is turning into rainfall. Three things are happening at once. Snowfall is becoming rainfall. And there's a difference between snowfall and rainfall, because rainfall is sudden, violent, doesn't accumulate, and there is a quick runoff and results in flooding. Snow will not easily result in flooding, because snow will come and settle on the ground. Water won't settle on the ground. Water will flow and result in flooding. Permafrost is gone. So the mountains no more have their cement. The mountains are no more plastered. What happens then? All the loose rocks and the soil and the debris that keeps falling. And the glaciers are melting. What does that mean? Please understand. They are melting at such a rate that thousands of glacial lakes have already been formed in the Himalayas. Please understand, they didn't exist even till a few decades back. Thousands of new glacial lakes have been formed, and they look very nice, very picturesque, because they contain Very pure, refined, distilled glacial water. But they are like ticking time bombs, these glacial lakes. Why? Because the wall of these lakes is simply loose rock and gravel and the debris from the melting glacier. Often that debris itself is in the form of huge chunks of ice. Now that is forming the walls of these lakes. And these lakes are only getting bigger and bigger every passing year because the glacier is melting more and more. In fact, the last flood on the same river was because a glacial lake in Tibet overflew because of temperature rise. So we got a flood. And now we have thousands of these glacial lakes. And these glacial lakes are very, very unstable. Very unstable. The flood that we had in Uttarakhand in India last year, around 10, 12 years back, that was because one of such lakes just bursted. And that resulted in a huge and sudden flow downstream. Now these glacial lakes, they are sitting over entire villages. Now the lake is here, and here what you have is a hilly village. They are also sitting over dams, over power projects, hydroelectric projects. And I said these lakes are extremely unstable. These lakes have to collapse sooner than later. Today, tomorrow, next month, 2 years later, 5 years later, that lake is bound to implode because of its own weight, or because there can be an earthquake, some reason, or because a huge piece of ice falls into that lake. Something can happen, and the lake is so unstable. The lake will collapse. And when the lake collapses, can you imagine the quantity of water that now rushes downstream? First of all, the quantity is huge. And secondly, the water is being supported by gravity. The water is coming downstream. And everything that will be in the way of this water will be swept away. And that is what we are experiencing. Though this particular case, it was not really a lake that was responsible. In this particular case, the Trishuli Nadi case, the water itself was obstructed by an avalanche. We are not going into any of this. We are going into more interesting details. People are talking, for example, of sentimental stories. People are talking of how somebody was rescued and he was not rescued, and the family members. And I understand. I do have respect for all the emotions involved here. But something much bigger is at stake. And why is nobody talking of it? I fail to understand.
Yeah, even there were some treaties, climate summits, and some promises of green technology, but I think they are just in paper, not in work.
No technology is going to work, because this is not a problem of lack of technology. This is not a problem of lack of information either. This is the climate catastrophe that we are experiencing is a problem of human consciousness, and it can be addressed only there. You cannot treat a disease where it is not. Just by treating the symptoms, you will never get rid of the disease. The problem lies within, please understand. And the problem lies not only within, but it lies here and now. This is not a problem of the future. This is a problem of the present. This is not a problem of abstraction. This is a problem of the current generation, not future generations. Let me substantiate this. The Paris Agreement was talking of capping temperature rise at 1.5 degrees centigrade, right? And we feel happy about that. We then know, if we can stop it at 1.5 degrees, it would be life as usual. No, not at all. First of all, it is not stopping at 1.5. It is going all the way to 3, 4, 5 degrees. We do not know. Once the feedback loops start kicking in, it is anyway out of our hands. And the feedback loops have already started doing their work. We are not stopping at 1.5. No way. And even if you do manage to stop at 1.5, which by the way is not happening, still you will find that even at 1.5 degrees, we have lost 1/3 of our glaciers. Now think of the accumulated mass of frozen water on our hills and think of what happens when we lose 1/3, 33% of that. We are losing our glaciers at that rate. And it is not so distant in the future. We are going to lose 33% of our glaciers within the next 20 years itself. And we have already lost a big part of that 33%. And as the temperature rise continues, if the trajectory that it currently has continues to hold, then we are losing 80% or more of our glaciers within the lifetime of our young generation. 80% or more of glaciers gone within the lifetime of what you call as Gen Alpha. And if you are young, you will see at least 33% of our glaciers gone. And the glaciers won't just disappear. They will retreat with a bang. What Nepal and India and the world has just heard is one of those bangs. The glaciers will keep banging and they'll bang us really hard into us. Because the glaciers have water. The water simply cannot vanish in thin air. That water will eventually come to the plains. The Himalayan system is feeding at least 10 important river basins. It's feeding at least 2 billion people of the world. And it's feeding them mostly because of the glaciers. The glaciers can give you life. And what we are seeing in Nepal today is that the glaciers can also give you a very painful death. The glaciers kept on giving us life for thousands of years. Now the glaciers have decided to give us death. Because we are giving death to the glaciers. Please understand the life cycle of a disappearing glacier, please. There is that huge mass of water sitting on top of a hill. That's what you call a glacier. First of all, it starts melting at an accelerating rate. So what you get is floods. Because the water is being lost by the glacier at a rate that is far greater than the normal rate. So what you get is floods. So till around 2045 or 2050, what India and Nepal and Pakistan and Tibet and to some extent China, they are going to experience is floods. Now, it will appear business as usual. Some people may also welcome the whole thing. They say, the rivers are carrying so much more water. Happy thing, happy thing. What they don't see is that the FDs are melting into a current account. The glaciers have been our ancient fixed deposits. We have been living out of their interest. What is their interest? The normal thaw of ice. The normal rate of melting of ice is the interest that this FD has been giving us, and we have been happily surviving, thriving on that interest. But now, those FDs are turning into current account. So for a while, for the next 20 years, it would appear as if we have so much water. And we won't inquire, we won't bother to see that excess water in our rivers is coming at the cost of the glaciers. But some time around the end of these 20 years, the ice in the glaciers will reduce to such an extent that even an accelerated rate of melting will start proving insufficient to feed the rivers. And now the rivers will start thinning down irreversibly. So first of all, you will have floods for the next 20 years as we are experiencing these days. For next 20 years, the entire subcontinent is going to experience massive floods. And I have said that repeatedly. And people will say, but where is global warming? This Acharya has been saying there will be no water, but now the rivers are having excess water. You do not see where that excess water is coming from. At the turn of 20 years, the rivers will start thinning down. And they'll keep thinning down. And they will die down. That does not mean that no river will ever carry any water again. That simply means that the rivers will cease to be perennial. The rivers will have water, but that will only be monsoonal water. Monsoonal water. And the rivers will flood much more. Why? Because as the glaciers melt, the silt comes to occupy the bottom of the rivers. So the river bed gets shallower. And so the river floods much more, even if the water it's carrying gets lesser. Even with a smaller quantity of water, what you find is more devastating floods. But even that would happen only for the next 20 years. After the next 20 years, the rivers will gradually start losing water. Even the holiest of rivers that we have, even the holiest of rivers that we have. And once, please understand, the North Indian plains start receiving lesser water. What happens to the huge mass of population living here? What happens? Even the Trishuli river, which is at the center of all our discussion, flows through Nepal, becomes Narayani, enters India as the Gandak, and then joins the Ganga. So much of the agriculture in Bihar depends on the Trishuli river in Nepal. The dolphin ghadial ecosystem depends on this river. So many hydroelectric power projects depend on this river, and they are of importance to both Nepal and India. So this is not just Nepal's problem, this is India's problem. This is not just India's problem, this is the planet's problem. We have already entered the mass extinction phase. And nobody wants to talk of it. It is nearly impossible to save mankind and millions of other species this point onwards, and this extinction is not something of the future anymore. It is happening right now, right here. Yes, you were saying something.
Yeah, I was saying, actually, you already mentioned that thing. This flood, it also affect freshwater ecosystem, like you mentioned about the fishes, dolphin. So it's not only about the people, it's also about animal and biodiversity as well.
No, you please see. It's all operating as a network in equilibrium. The trees require a particular temperature to live, to germinate. to grow up. It is gone. The animals, they require a particular kind of vegetation, which is their staple food. That is gone. Everything will be gone. What do you think? With these temperature changes, the monsoons will remain as usual? No. The monsoonal patterns will shift. They have already shifted. What does that do to the farmer growing crops, and what does that do to the food security of the entire region? People say, but climate crisis is not just our headache, it is going to affect the entire world, and why should, we bother too much about the emissions that are actually caused by somebody living in San Francisco or in Berlin? Because irrespective of who is the emitter, it is South Asia that is going to suffer the most. Bad news. The emissions might be coming from Canada, from US, from any place, Australia, UK. The worst affected region is going to be the Indian subcontinent. That's why we must bother. And that's why media should be honest enough to tell the reality to people. Instead of turning it into news centered on sensationalism and display of shallow emotionality and even trivial gossip.
Acharya, just wanted to add a point regarding the warming. I was reading some data, and this region is actually warming much faster than the rest of the planet.
Yes. Not only this region, Anupam, the Antarctic as well. So when we say that the world is going to heat up by 1.5 degrees, the regions that are the most vulnerable and sensitive to the climate crisis, they are going to get heated up by 4 degrees, 5 degrees, even 8 degrees. Now, can you imagine what 4 or 8 degrees temperature rise does to a massive bulk of ice? Obviously, it cracks up. It cracks up, and we are sitting just underneath that wall of ice. That huge mountain of ice, which is called Himalaya, the very abode of ice, and we are living below it. Mankind is the most stupid species created by Prakriti in her course of evolution. The only species that has successfully destroyed its own habitat.
So I was asking, what as an individual can we do to stop this crisis? Because now you have created such a good platform, like we can see the real reason, but how can we?
Ma'am, we destroyed the planet only as individuals by doing stupid things. And if as individuals we can stop doing those stupid things, obviously the situation can be redeemed at least to some extent. Though let's please not try to hide behind hope. The fact is that even if we course correct now, this very moment, the planet is still looking at 1.5 degrees plus scenarios. You understand feedback loops? Feedback loops mean the kind of systems that once set in motion become irreversible. They proceed in an autopilot mode. I have often quoted many examples. The glacial system is in itself a very good example, a very scary example of a feedback loop. So the ice-capped mountains are white in color. Are they not? What does white color do to sunlight? It is white only because it reflects everything back. That's why it appears white. Right? The very definition of white. It will not absorb sunlight. It will reflect it back. So it won't get heated up. It didn't absorb it. It didn't get heated up. So that's what keeps the mountains and the valleys cool. Now ice melts. And when the ice melts, the dark rock, the gray, the black rock beneath it gets exposed. And this one will absorb sunlight. And once it absorbs sunlight, it gets heated up. When it gets heated up, it melts more ice. And when it melts more ice, more rock gets exposed. And when more rock gets exposed, then it absorbs more sunlight and more ice melts. This is called a feedback loop. And once it starts, it is like a ball on a slope. You cannot stop it. This is a process that is not just unstoppable, but it is a process that accelerates on its own. Which means even if man corrects his ways, mends his ways, the planet would still keep hurtling towards devastation. And not one, but at least 10 different such feedback loops have already been triggered and activated. So when you say, what can we do as individuals? Well, a realistic answer would be probably, we are already past the date. Probably we have already crossed the point of no return. But still, something can still be salvaged. And what can still be done? Please stop relying on tech and policy measures. That kind of activism is not going to redeem it for you. Tech is important, policy is important, but they are not at the root of the problem. Therefore, they will not be at the root of the solution. What is causing this problem is the infinite human urge to consume. This is a problem of a badly educated consciousness. Every single culture in the world, every society, every family, every religion, every language, every nationality. The kid is born and you tell the kid you must be prosperous and happy. You must consume more and that is happiness. You must multiply. Eat and multiply, eat and multiply, eat and multiply. And that is the carbon crisis. Consumption is emission. Consumption is emission. And that consumption is not a thing of the body. That consumption is coming from the emptiness in consciousness. That consumption is not just harmful. It is wasteful. Wasteful in the sense that the consumer never derives any lasting satisfaction from that consumption. So the consumer gets nothing, but the planet gets devastated. Why? Because cultures, traditions, pop philosophies, they have told us we must be successful, we must be happy. And how? By having more, by owning more, by achieving more, by winning more, by eating more, by consuming more, by possessing more. As long as you do not challenge this philosophy, there is no way you can do anything about the current crisis. The only way out is the mass-based education of the self that I have been crying hoarse about. And we don't want to listen. We believe little smart tricks would work. We believe, we are so intelligent, we'll come up with some sharp technology that would reduce emissions. Not just reduce emissions, actually capture pre-existing carbon dioxide from the air. We are so smart. Your smartness has already destroyed the planet. There is very little left to redeem. But then you are hiding the fact from your kids. All these emitters will die in the coming decades. And this burning debris called the planet Earth will be left for the young generations to cope with. We have not just destroyed what we received from our ancestors, we have also destroyed the future of our coming generations. That's the kind of people we are. More and more such tragic events will keep happening and will still not budge. The masses and the media will still not dare to utter the truth. We'll just keep each other entertained. Oh, it was situational. Oh, it was a piece of bad luck. Oh, people went for pilgrimage and maybe God was so fond of them, God called them in. And that's the kind of news I am seeing on the TV. Nauseating. And that brings me to the pilgrimage map of India. Ganga, Gangotri, Kedarnath, Badrinath. That overlaps almost totally with the glacial map. How will our pilgrimage centers survive at all? How will the Ganga and Yamuna survive? But we are not even talking of this. Politicians are issuing condolences. Spiritual leaders are sending healing messages and shedding tears. Journalists are climbing the rocks to somehow meet a so-called survivor and interview him and gather more TRP. And all of this is such a shame. The next glacier is about to give up. Don't you hear the ice cracking? "6,000 glaciers, each capable of forming hundreds of glacial lakes. Each of those glacial lakes capable of wreaking havoc on thousands of people. Rivers that have been flowing perennially since thousands of years drying down. And the worst hit will be the poorest in the population. And the animals and the trees. This is climate injustice. The ones to suffer the heaviest will be the ones whose carbon footprint is the smallest.
Namaste, Ajay. So, Nepal has barely caused any of this. I'm from Nepal, and I lived there for my childhood. 18 years I spent there in the Himalayas. So here, I see, my whole country is responsible for about 0.1% of the world emission. Individual burns around, half a ton of the carbons a year. If you say like one individual in the America, like it's around 14, right? So the people who died had emitted, almost nothing. Are we simply meant to die for other, people's consumption? And where is this justice?
See, the fundamental flaw here is the thought that there are other people because you are raising the issue of climate injustice, and what you are saying, the way you are putting forward the facts, is absolutely on the money. Very right. Therefore, I'll have to go to the root of the problem. What he said is that the carbon footprint of the average Nepali citizen is not even 1 metric ton per year. The global average is close to 3-4 tons. Whereas the emission levels of the average American are 12, 14, 15, and when you go to the Gulf countries, it is 20 plus metric tons a year. So why are the poor Nepali and the poor Indians suffering when the emissions are being done by somebody else? Why are we? Because we thought that there are other people, because we did not see that mankind is one. Because we thought that their affairs are their affairs and our affairs are our affairs. Because nature, Prakriti, sees mankind as a whole and does not distinguish on the basis of passport or nationality. Because irrespective of where the COVID-19 virus came from, the entire world died. What do you do then? Whatever is possible, raise awareness. Do not treat those people as separate. Do not call them foreigners. If you need, for your own sake, to raise awareness in the US, you will have to do that. However impractical it sounds, but that is the only way. That is the only way. I was on a tour to UK almost for 2 months, and everywhere I was talking of the climate crisis continuously. Because India will suffer at the hands of British emissions. I must stop emissions in London if I am to save Uttarakhand. It will sound ludicrous to many, but yes, that's true. To save Kedarnath or Rudraprayag or Chamoli or Rishikesh, I'll have to speak at London. Because that's where the emissions are coming from. And by the way, India is not far behind now, at least in cumulative emissions. Per capita emissions, yes, we are still far behind India. But when it comes to total emissions, we are among the top 5 in the world, probably number 3 already. So we'll have to see that the things that we entertain ourselves with, things like political boundaries, are of no relevance at all. Flowing water will not respect political boundaries. The Himalayas know no political boundaries. The carbon molecule knows no political boundary. The rising oceans will not say, okay, let me spare Mumbai because the culprit is Chicago. You'll have to do your best and at all places possible. And yes, this is climate injustice. You are very right. Take this to its logical extreme and tell me, why must animals suffer? Their carbon footprint is close to zero. Less than even the poorest human being. Why must animals suffer so much? And animals are going to suffer the most. Why must all plants and trees species suffer the most? Their carbon footprint is nothing, but they will suffer the most. Which must tell you that you must stop worshipping the rich. Start from there at least. And I know, just like we have in India, there is a great urge among the Nepali youth to migrate to greener pastures. The affluent lords that you keep worshipping are the ones sentencing you to death. Your very role models are killing you and you don't see that. You worship someone because he is a trillionaire, you worship someone because he is a tech mogul. You don't see that he is the one responsible for your devastation. Look at his carbon footprint. But then you are impressed exactly because he has a huge footprint. Because that is the purpose you have assigned to your life. I too want to be in a position where I am called successful and therefore I can expend a lot, consume a lot, and have a footprint at least half as big as that of my, white role model. At least start respecting rightly. Start looking very closely at your own choices. A lot of the supply lines of the world would collapse if these 2 billion consumers in South Asia reconsider their life choices with wisdom. Yes, here in the subcontinent, we are poor, but we are a lot. Yes, our average income levels are low, but our numbers are massive. So we do amount to a lot of purchase and consumption. At least begin with reconsidering your own purchase decisions, your own life decisions, your own value priorities. That will cause a reset in many capitals in the developed world. War, for example, is one of the primary contributors to the climate crisis. When it comes to the carbon footprints, the footprints of the armies are not even measured. Can you imagine how much does a tank emit or a fighter jet? But even as South Asians, at the mercy of the climate, we worship war. What are we doing? And when you say tank or fighter jet, we don't really manufacture any of our own. We import them from the developed world. And we pay the developed world not just their cost, but also a huge profit from our very shallow pockets. We are paying so that the developed world gets to emit more and more. Can we please reconsider the way we live? Or you can let the Himalayas do that for you. Prakriti gives two hoots to our species. We are the cancer of the planet. Prakriti has already arranged for our obituary. And a quick one at that.
Acharya, I was looking at a few more points related to this while you were explaining. One thing, as an Indian, we see there are a lot of effects this will have even on India. For example, Bihar, which is very flood prone. So the more the Himalayas become unstable, the more there'll be flooding in Bihar, which is India's one of the most flood prone states. It gets most of its floods yearly from Nepal. So this is something that is going to become even worse as Nepal becomes unstable.
The massive, the cruel irony of the whole thing is the poorest are the worst hit, and the poorest are also the most ignorant. The poorest are the ones that the media succeeds to enthrall with cheap entertainment, spicy gossip, and such things. Who in Bihar is thinking of the climate catastrophe? Can we please, first of all, begin with boycotting the publications that thrive on sensationalism? Can we please do an audit of the coverage given to climate by newspapers, portals, and the like? And those who are not devoting at least 25% space to climate must be immediately boycotted.
Even after all this, I was just thinking there is a pilgrimage to Kailash, and most of the pilgrims to Kailash are from India. But they go to the pilgrimage believing it is dharma or religion, but in fact, the actual religion is probably something else.
The actual act of dharma would today be to save the Himalayas. Don't scale them, don't climb them. First of all, save them. Don't boast that you scaled them. Humbly try to save them. Otherwise, they are going to turn into huge monuments of barren rock. That is happening at an astonishing pace and only accelerating each passing year. We call the Himalayas the abode of the gods, right? Devabhumi. Will we want to abandon our Devabhumi? But that's what we are doing. Look at it from any angle: livelihood, sustenance, survival, holiness. We are acting absolutely stupidly. And this species of ours calls itself intelligent, really. Two days from today, and we'll again be busy with some cheap matter, some political ripple somewhere, and we'll all rush to pander to it. Some celebrity said something, and that will become national news. YouTubers, influencers, they will come up with the next piece of trash to attract their audiences and their livelihood. Himalayas without the glaciers are not just barren walls of rock. They are barren and continuously collapsing walls of rock. It is the ice that holds them together. What would be India without the Himalayas? Come on.
Actually, a lot of the deaths that have happened, a majority of them are actually tourists and tourists from India. So I was just wondering, when a tourist from India goes there, spends money, and for that tourism, then you need the infrastructure in that fragile region. And this infrastructure is responsible also for a lot of...
One's first thing that we should come up with is Himalayas are not places of cheap tourism. Have a very high entry fee on all roads that lead to the Himalayas. These are very young mountains with a very fragile ecosystem. The one who is trying to climb these mountains must bear at least the whole economic cost of it. And economic cost includes environmental cost. Please pay up fully. before you entertain yourself with the river and the ice and the Maggie and the spice and the beer and the sex, please first of all pay up in full. A huge tax must be levied on every single vehicle. And by huge, I mean really, really huge. Not as punishment, but as justice. Instead, we are widening the roads in the name of development. We are inviting more and more people to climb up. Come, come, come. Come with your Itons and Thars and Scorpios. Come on our SUVs. And come on all these chartered buses. And if that is still inconvenient, we'll kill the hills to make helipads and airfields. And also have railways rushing right up to hilltops. Come, come, come. For this is development. This is death.
It seems so bad to say that the people who are dying, who are victims, in some sense, they are also the perpetrators of this.
I won't want to put it that way in this moment at least. It would appear insensitive to put it that way right now, but yes, technically, an academic might admit that you are right. Insensitive, probably yes, but still technically right.
It's unfortunate, but yes, one is hardly aware of the responsibility then that one carries.
All that one wants is pleasure because that is the philosophy of life the world over. Why are you born? मज्जा वास्ते. काय को पैदा हुआ पुन? मौज करण वास्ते. That's the philosophy. India, America, Nepal, China, Russia. And that will continue to be so in absence of education of the self. Self-knowledge is the only environmentalism possible. In absence of self-knowledge, the relationship between man and nature, Prakriti, will remain frayed. And with self-knowledge, actually no environmentalism is needed. Self-knowledge takes care of environment on its own. When a man knows who he is not, he also knows what is it that consumption will not provide. And when he knows what consumption will not provide, he does not consume senselessly. And that takes care of emissions. Simple.
These are the terms that are exactly totally missing from the mainstream discussion.
Mainstream discussion, mainstream education, mainstream political discourse, everywhere. Nobody is talking of it. And I have been shouting about it from the rooftop since 2 decades, and it is getting very, very frustrating. Because I'm afraid in my lifetime itself, I'll see unimaginable devastation of this planet.
Hope after this, at least in discussions related to such incidents, we see more instances of usage of climate change, mass education of the self. I think that's the only way forward. Otherwise, it will just be like this.
Just download the Acharya Prashant app, and there you go to the community section, and you have live testimonials streaming in at the rate of 1 every 5 minutes. I'm seeing lives change in thousands, if not millions, every day in front of my own eyes. We are doing it. We have actually done it.
Join the community of more than 2 lakh participants on the Acharya Prashant app. Your first month is completely free. You'll get full access to Gita Mission. On the app, you will get regular live sessions, daily exclusive conversations with Acharya Prashant, access to the vibrant Gita community, wisdom exams, curated news, audiobooks, quotes, and much more. Search Acharya Prashant on Google Play Store or Apple App Store and download now.